You are listening to Season 2 of The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, the short and often daily podcast in which I chronicle my life and attempt to be a writer by writing daily. Sometimes. Hello, today is Friday the 7th of February 2025 and you are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer. So what have I done since we spoke last? Well, I got on an aeroplane. It was a lovely Boeing 777 and I flew in it from an airport in London to an airport in New York. I then got out of the aeroplane. I got onto a little bus thing. The little bus thing drove us to a hotel. I got to the hotel. I walked to a supermarket to get some fruit and yoghurt for breakfast. And then I slept. Actually, it's a bit better than that. I've done a bit more than that because during the flight, we get a rest break. I got 90 minutes. And during that rest break, I did actually write the first 1,500 words of the epilogue to Empress of the Trees against all probabilities because I had no specific plans to do it. I certainly didn't mention it on the podcast that I was going to try and do that, and I kind of surprised myself because it's an aircraft, because it's an aircraft designed. Well, I say design. It's used for doing shorter flights, and as such, it doesn't require us to have bunks and everything on board. So we don't have those on that particular aircraft. So you just basically get to sit in a little curtained off area and chill for a bit. Not that it was a massively crazy busy flight, but yeah, you get to chill a little bit. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to have a go at this. So I think I mentioned the other day that I've already written a chapter breakdown. It has, I think it's 12 scenes in it. And I was a little bit worried, thinking, God, if each scene is like 1,000 or more words, that's going to be a mammoth chapter. But then I kind of look at the notes for each scene and they're not too intense. So I wrote on there the first two scenes. That took me about an hour, and I had an hour and a half, and I thought about trying to start the third scene, but it's going to be longer and more complicated. And one thing I really don't like doing, and it really ruins my flow, is if I stop in the middle of a scene, I find it very difficult on a subsequent writing session to pick up on it. So I like to write the whole scene in one sitting, as it were. So yeah, I got that done. And don't get me wrong, I've read through it back today and I can't quite work out how I need to structure it, but this will come out in the edit and it'll get rectified in the edit, should I say. So the scene, one of the things I basically wanted to happen in this final scene is for Adrian and Ronnie to, wake up together. Ronnie's a girl. And she's pregnant with his kid, or their kid, but he's the father. And so that I did, and I just got this moment where he's just resting his hand on her swollen stomach. For some reason, that moment was in my head absolutely ages ago. So I did that. But and so basically the whole scene is waking up. So this is the first time we know they got together. It's the first time we know she's pregnant. And it's the first time we know the fates of some of the other characters because they're talking about them. Ones that we don't know if they quite made it or not because of the situation in which they went into their hibernation. And it works. But the problem is because I basically got a scene of these two people waking up and they're actually happy and, dare I say it, in love, and I don't normally write that kind of nonsense, but these two have just been through an awful lot together and there is a genuine bond between them, which, again, was never in my plan. I never invented this character to have these two liking each other. I put this character in to be a soldier who had to kill people to protect her, and that was his job. And then I anyway. The problem I've got is that I kind of need to establish a lot of what's happened in the meantime. So in real terms, this bit is set 2 or 3 years. I haven't decided exactly because I don't suppose it really matters. But 2 or 3 years after the events of not the extinction because there's some survivors, but the deaths of the majority of the human race when oxygen is removed from the planet as a deliberate act by the trees. And a lot has happened in that meantime. And I can't work out whether I would have whether it be better to drip feed some of that backstory into the scenes that I write, or to have a kind of thing at the beginning where I tell the things that happened in one go. It is quite tricky, and my instinct, because I've got this basic scene where it's just a couple of people who are actually really like each other, kind of talking about what they're going to do for the next couple of days, because obviously there's a plot point that needs to happen, because there's still things happening in the epilogue that hopefully people won't be expecting. But it keeps being interrupted by, they mention a character and then like, I have to tell you what happened to that character and where they are. And I'm almost wondering if it might be better. If it might be better to drip feed it. And there is another option which has just come into my head, which I really don't like the idea of, but it also makes sense. Instead of having an epilogue, the book's currently in 4 parts. Instead of having an epilogue, the other option... Oh, God, what am I doing to myself? Instead of having an epilogue, the other option is to have part 5 of the book, which shows these things happening. Oh, God, and it wouldn't be as long. So some of the other parts are like 80,000 words. This would probably only need to be a lot less. It would probably only have to be a handful of chapters. But it might be a better way of showing what... Oh, God, I've literally thought of this whilst I've been speaking. So should I write a 10,000 word epilogue to wrap it up? Or would it be better to write 25,000 words? And the final chapter would be effectively what I've got planned for the epilogue now. That's really interesting. It also means I'm not quite as close. If I were to go down that path, it means I'm not quite as close to the end of the writing process as I thought. But am I trying to cram too much into the epilogue? Would it be better to show what happens? Show the world as it slowly wakes up and the characters... Okay. Thoughts, please. I know there's a handful of people that listen to this. Comments can be left, particularly if you leave this on Spotify. I know there's one person who does regularly leave me comments. I do always see them. I do sometimes respond to them, but I'm kind of not sure whether you know the responses are there. But I certainly like them all, and I do sometimes put an answer. So yeah, that's my question. Should I write an epilogue that rounds the story off? Or should I put a fifth part, I've divided the book into 4 parts. Should I put a 5th part which just shows the world after, not in massive detail, as I'm not talking about it being enormous, but maybe so it's slightly less rushed. If that's the case, then the book will be even bloody longer and there's even more writing to do, but I don't know. I can see the appeal of both versions, doing a quick epilogue or writing a few more chapters to properly spell out what's happened to these characters. And I love some of these characters, and I do worry that the epilogue I've got planned shortchanges some of them. Yeah. Okay, well, anyway, if anybody has any thoughts, that'd be lovely. I'm going to now mull that over. Oh, God, have I just created myself a lot of extra work? Possibly, but if it's right for the story, it's right for the story. Right, I'm going to go and do some thinking and wish I hadn't thought that on this podcast live. Anyway, I'll shut up and go away and think. Talk to you later. Thank you for listening. I'll be back at some point tomorrow. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer. For more information about what I'm writing, go to linktr.ee/Richard Writes, capital R, capital W, where you can find details of my website and social media. I may see you there.